a pusher or not to be a puller? That is the question. Well, we're about to find out. Hey everyone, welcome. Oh, what was that? What did I do then?
Your arm went in the wire.
Ah, okay. That's not happened before. Hey everyone, welcome to this video. So the chances are, if you're watching this video, you're wanting to pull better quality lines and stronger lines on the skin. So hopefully today we're going to answer that question. Does it matter if you push a line or pull a line on the skin with your tattoo machine? Well, it's one of those questions where some artists will tell you it doesn't make any difference, and some artists will tell you it absolutely does make a difference. So hopefully today I'm going to be sprinkling some logic on it, going in depth and explaining why pushing or pulling the line can have different effects on the skin. Like all my videos guys, to get the most out of them, watch them in its entirety, don't skip any of it. With all that said, let's get straight into it. To answer the question to push or pull the machine on the skin is hugely down to ink flow. How efficient that ink flows depends on whether you're using a coil machine with standard tattoo needles and tips or a pen style machine with cartridges. With coil machines you can have the option of changing between tips. These can be plastic disposable or steel autoclavable ones. Different to using cartridges with preloaded needles which would fit in a standard pen style machine. For example, you'd have a 3-round liner, 5-round liner, 7-round liner, 9-round liner, and so on. When you buy disposable tips for coil machines, you can actually choose the style that you'd like to use. Here's how the numbers and meanings change when buying tips as opposed to cartridges. If you buy a standard box of tattoo needles, they will be labelled like this. For example, 1207RL, 12 being the gauge or thickness of each needle, 7 meaning there's 7 needles actually attached to the needle bar, and the RL is the configuration or layout of the needles. RL meaning round liner. When using your own tips, the size of the tip number should remain the same as the amount of needles that you're dropping into the tube. For example, a 3-round liner tip will comfortably hold a needle bar with 3 needles attached to it. If you try to fit a needle bar with 7 needles attached to it in a 3-round liner tip, then it would be far too tight for the ink to flow down into the skin. The other options we have for using disposable tips are the actual style of the end of the tips, 7VT, which means the tip is large enough to accept a 7-round liner needle, but it also means the end of the tip is shaped like a V. These can also be labelled as DT, which means diamond tips. Again, it's just an abbreviation which describes the shape. V-tips and diamond tips are basically the same thing. The reason for this cutout shape is to aid the needle to be seated comfortably at the back of the tip. I found through experience V-tips and diamond tips give much better ink flow. Most cartridges won't be labelled as V-tip or diamond tip, as the vast majority of them are already shaped. Though I have seen a few times in the past that some really cheap budget branded cartridges have absolutely no shape at the end of them. And it's probably when you've not been able to get on with a certain brand of cartridge and you can't seem to pull a line, this could well be the problem. So in this next section, we're going to be taking a look at what's happening when we're using these style of V-tips and D-tips with regards to pushing or pulling the machine. When we set a coil machine up, the use of an elastic band helps the needle remain seated and stable at the back of the tip. This provides a nice steady flow of ink travelling down the tip to the skin. This is an example of what happens when a machine is being pushed forward following the stencil. As a side note, I only ever use V-tips and D-tips because when tips don't include this cutout shape feature, let's just say they're labelled up as a 7-round liner in this example, and there's no shape at the end, the needle tends to wobble and bounce around in the end and can't be seated, which can be an absolute nightmare if you're trying to tattoo fine script and your needle won't stay still. So let's now flip this all around in the next section and see what happens when we pull the machine on the skin. Basically, everything we've just discussed is the opposite way around when the machine is being pulled on the skin. Even in some instances, the needle becomes unseated. This can result in a very weak, low quality line because the ink flow is getting disrupted with the needle not being able to be correctly seated. So before we get into this live demonstration, first going to select our tip, disposable tip. You can see what we just talked about. This is a 7V tip. Got our 7-round liner needle here and our trusty coil machine, which is all rigged up ready to go. So the really cool thing about this grip is some of them you need to twist Allen keys or hex keys to tighten the tip into it. With this one you don't, it's just literally just screw it anti-clockwise, put your tip in, then tighten it up again. They're from Killer Ink in the UK, these grips. Cost about £30, but well worth it. Saves loads of time faffing about with Allen keys. See, it's the V tip or diamond tip, whatever you want to call it. Make sure the tip is facing frontwards as well, otherwise it kind of defeats the whole object of this video if it's like twisted at a different angle. Right, just gonna load the needle in now. Got our grommet on. Machine's tuned nicely. I think we're running at about 120 cycles per second on this machine. Little bend in the back of the needle. Bend is also going to aid it to be seated at the back of the tip. Just going to drop it. Make sure that the needles are actually on the back of the needle bar there and not on the front like that. I'm going to drop it, let gravity do its thing. There we go, that's straight into there. I'm just going to set my needle depth now just by adjusting the clamp, moving the grip up and down. Nice. You know, with all your pens and your latest technology, you just can't beat that hum of a coil machine when you go into a tattoo studio. Fine tattoo studios are quite silent nowadays. When you go in, everyone's got, you know, the batteries and the pens going, which are good, don't get me wrong, but you can't beat this. So this is the line which was pushed, and this is the line which was pulled. And you can see the pushed one looks a lot solider, a lot bolder than the pulled one. The pulled one looks quite pitted, which was down to that ink flow issue which we've discussed. The reason I said at the beginning of the demonstration that cartridges are a bit different to using standard needles is because you don't really get this type of needle movement in a cartridge tip, which is most likely down to the way they're manufactured. The needles in cartridges tend to be a lot more secure. Personally finding premium cartridges contain needles which are super steady and don't wobble. So to conclude this video, to push or to pull the machine on the skin, I would personally recommend to push, but here's the disclaimer. It's not wrong to pull the machine on the skin. If you do prefer to pull the machine, the easiest fix is just to reposition your machine in your hand so if you're pulling it towards you, the needle is still facing forwards. Also, you might say, Jono, I see loads of amazing artists push and pull lines. Well, how I would respond to this, it's like anything. With experience, you learn new ways and techniques that you adapt to that work for you. The purpose of this video isn't to say my answer is the only right answer, but rather giving you a thorough understanding of what's going on when you try either technique. As a side note guys, if you want to use the disposable tips that I've used in this video today, if you go into this video's description box, you can click the link and you can buy the exact same tips which I've used in this video.